Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is the day the Lord has made, and we shall rejoice and be glad in it. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. We're in the midst of Kwanzaa now, so for all y'all that celebrate Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa. And we're pushing towards New Year's Eve. We're going to have 3 services on New Year's Eve day and that evening. Of course, our 9 a.m. and our 11 a.m. service, we're going to have those. Then our third service for that day will be our 10 o'clock service to bring in the new year. We're going to talk about some of that as well. On that evening, what New Year's Eve really means to the African American. For us, it is watch night. It is watch night. As much as we don't use that nomenclature in advertising, marketing, and branding purposes, that's what that means to the black church, watch night. We'll talk a little bit more about that that evening because, again, Emancipation Day is real. And that's something most churches don't focus on, most churches don't talk about, but I believe we're going to spend some time talking about it on that night because if you don't know where you came from and if you don't know your history, they say you are destined to repeat it. And so if you look at some of the things that are happening today, they are taking books out of schools. They're taking books out of school. I forgot the school system. They just eliminated in high school electives for like African American literature and African American studies. And I remember I had ethnic studies back in '85. That was one of my favorite classes as well. I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed looking at, and studying ethnic culture in America, especially in San Diego, California, where we were a really diverse community. We had Asians, we had Pacific Islanders, we had Mexicans and Chicanos, and so along with black folk, we had a great quilt. And so to learn about Cesar Chavez, I didn't learn about Cesar Chavez in college. I learned about him in high school. And that's where we should be exposed to some of these things. Because again, think about it. If I didn't learn about it, whatever I didn't learn about in high school that I learned in college, guess where I didn't learn it? If I didn't go to college. I wouldn't learn it. There are things that I learned in college, taking black studies in college, that was never presented to me in high school. Right? And so if kids aren't going to college, where are they getting this information? Black and white children. If they're not exposed to these things, they're just growing up thinking that everything that happened in this country is based on what they heard or read in high school. Because think about it. Columbus Day. I came along in the 80s, we still celebrated Columbus Day. Right? And again, if you got gray hair, you probably celebrated it too. But it was just recent, and again, I found out again once I went to college that, all right, wow, maybe this thing didn't happen the way they said it did. And it wasn't that, it's not like it was the next step of calculus that you can only get it in college or something of that nature. This is just basic history. Basic historical facts that are intentionally not taught at the high school level. And I have to say intentionally because someone sets the curriculum for high schools. We need to understand the importance of Emancipation Day and the importance of Jim Crow laws and Jim Crow segregation and all these different things. We need to understand the importance of voting rights and the Voting Rights Act and what that means for us right now in 2023 as we get ready to go into 2024 because they are taking our rights. And I'm telling y'all, it's only going to be a matter of time before they come after the rights of Christians and the rights of black churches. They're already talking about tax churches. They're already talking about that. And so we need to understand from whence we've come because they're either trying to take us back to where we got out of or they're trying to create something that will impact us adversely. Again, many of us, especially people that are in the room, outside of one person, we are children of affirmative action. And it's gone now. It's gone. So what's next? And what does this have to do with us as a church? It has everything to do with us as a church, because as an African-American church serving and ministering to the African-American community, we have to be cognizant of that and how that impacts our folk, and find out and help them understand what's next for them. And it's really that what next, that's what I really want to talk about and deal with tonight, is the what next after Jesus' birth, right? And so faith comes by what? Hearing what? The Word of God. So we know in the Word of God, especially if we go back to the Gospel of Luke, the 2nd chapter, we have allowed the world and mass media to hijack the message of Jesus and of his birth. Again, they've got little drummer boy in the manger, right? Again, I mean, I don't know how many of you actually saw the little drummer boy growing up as a kid. I remember seeing there was an actual one of the little claymation of the little drummer boy, and I grew up thinking that the little drummer boy was a part of. Oh man, there was a drummer that came and saw Jesus when he's a baby. Never happened, and I was shocked. Every nativity scene, right? Because I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I love nativity scenes. Let me just put that out right now. But one of the things I love about my home church, I grew up Catholic, St. Rita's Catholic Church. They had this large space out front that they would create this large nativity scene. And they had Jesus, they had Mary and Joseph, they had the angels, they had the shepherds and the sheep. But you know who else they had in there? Take a guess who else they had in there. Someone said Santa. Type in what else you think you see or have seen in a nativity scene. What else that I didn't mention? What else is in that nativity scene? Because you got the shepherds, you got Mary, Joseph, little baby Jesus, right? You got a donkey leaning over. But who else is in there? Because you said camels, right? You have the animals. All right. What 3 people do you have in there? What 3 men? Have y'all seen that? They have the 3 wise men in the manger. Guess what? The 3 wise men came, but they weren't in the manger. And most of the depictions that we've seen, even in the church, they have the 3 wise men meeting baby infant Jesus. So that's what I kind of want to deal with tonight, because I want to deal with the what next. I want to deal with the, with what happened, because we really don't have the opportunity around this season to deal with some of those traditions and myths that we even misrepresent in the church. We try to cram, and I understand it, because we have Christmas, the day we celebrate his birth, even though it may not have been December 25th. This is the day that we choose to stop and pause and remember his birth. But then between December 21st or December 25th and, 3rd, 4th Sunday in March or around April, what do we celebrate in the springtime? We celebrate Easter. So we try to figure out what's going on in the life of Jesus between December 25th and mid-March, beginning of April. What happens on Easter Sunday when he's resurrected? But the thing we really don't deal with, and it's of importance in my opinion, is this 2nd chapter of Luke. Because we see a few distinct things that take place in the maturation of Jesus. We really do. The first thing is this. Jesus is presented at the temple. The text lets us know that. Well, I mean, we can even take one step. We can take one step back from there, because on the 8th day, verse 21 says he was circumcised. And it's interesting. Why do we care about Jesus being circumcised? Why does that matter? Right? Verse 21, on the 8th day, when it was time to circumcise the child, he was named Jesus, the name the angel had given him before he was conceived. So we see a few things there. One, eight number, that's the number of new beginnings, right? When it was time for him to be circumcised, all males had to be circumcised. Now, why was that important? It was the circumcising of the flesh that showed that they were in covenant with God. And so Jesus, even being the Son of God, he still went through the same rituals and traditions that all the other children of Israel, all the other men born males had to go through. So what he even signified through this act was that, you know what? I am in covenant relationship with God. I am in covenant with God. Now, for them, it was, for the Jews, it was an outward impact, right? It was a circumcision of the flesh, but the Bible talks about, for the believer today, for that to be a circumcision of the heart. That we are to be in covenant relationship with God, so much so that even Jesus chose to be in covenant relationship with God. Every last one of you should choose to be in an irrevocable covenant with God. And that's almost redundant, because the type of covenant that you're in with God, it's something that you cannot get out of. You can't put that flesh back on. Come on, Dr. Addy. You've been a pediatrician for a lot of your adult life. Once it's gone, it's gone. So they can't come back and say, can we get that back? That flesh is gone. That skin is gone. I remember I asked the doc, where when they removed my lung, I'm like, hey, where is it? It's like, man, it's some tissue over in a pail over there. There is no putting it back together. And why is that important? Why is that important to understand how God looks at this covenant? It's something that you can't change. God doesn't want to change his relationship with you. God won't change his relationship with you. Once you walk into covenant relationship with God, in God's eyes, there's no turning back. Even if you turn your back on God, God will not turn his back on you. You walk away from the church, you walk away from God, and you say, God, I'm never going to serve you again. God is still going to send his Holy Ghost and say, hey, what about today? You know I still love you. God is still going to give you messengers that will bring you a resounding message of the love of God, that God still loves you. Someone may come and evangelize to you one day. Y'all, that's why evangelism is important, because there are people who are trying to actively walk away and resist the covenant relationship with God that they already have. And maybe your witness will be the thing that God uses to get them back into covenant relationship. In marriage counseling, we talk about the difference between covenants and contracts. Contracts can be broken if someone doesn't hold up one end. Car note, house mortgage. You don't pay, they're going to come repossess, and they won't come foreclose. God's not going to foreclose on y'all's relationship. The one thing you've seen at weddings, Gail, is the sand covenant, right? They have the, and what that represents, the salt covenant, what that represents is you have two individuals that enter into covenant with each other, and they pour some of their sand into the other person's, and the wife pours some into the husband's, shake them up. And the piece to that, the covenant is, until every grain is removed, we'll be in covenant. And the whole point is this. In other words, you have to get all of their sand out of yours, right? And all of your sand out of theirs. And guess what? With it being sand that's all the same color, with it being salt that's all the same color, guess what ain't about to happen? You're not removing. You might get lucky and remove one or two, but you're not removing all of them. And that's how our covenant is with God. He's in it for the long haul. He's in it for the long. Even if you get mad at him, even if You can go, I mean, and I'm not going to lie. If you ain't never been mad at God, you really ain't in a relationship with God. If you've never yelled at God, I read this Jim Westeroff in his book, Spiritual Life. He said that if you've never cussed at God, how can you say you're in a real relationship with him? Can't question God. Shoot, I do. And not because I lack faith, but just because I might be frustrated. And God, help me to understand this thing, God. What's going on, Lord? What are you doing, God? Then you got these just ignorant Christians that, oh, you can't question God. You look throughout the entire book of Job, it's all about a man who was, above reproach that God recommended to the devil. And he spends the majority of that book questioning God. God, why am I going through what I'm going through? Jesus, wow, the person who didn't need to enter into covenant relationship with God, he did. So that's that. We talk about, all right, what happened next? Something significant happened, and more than just a medical procedure. Jesus took the step to enter into covenant with God, and we need to do that today. We need to do that in this season. Maybe you're at home. I don't know. A whole lot of folk after the pandemic need to check their covenant relation with God. Pastors and everything. Am I doing everything I said I was going to do in this covenant? Am I? Next thing in verse 27, we see that Jesus is presented at the temple. I don't have my glasses on. That's a 2, not a 7. As I got, back here it looked like a 7. Up here it looks like a 2. It's a 2, verse 22. When the time came for the purification rites required by the law of Moses, Joseph and Mary took Jesus to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As it is written in the law of the Lord, every firstborn male is to be consecrated to the Lord. Parents, it is your responsibility to get your kids to church. It's your responsibility. She ain't listening, so I can talk here. So Jocelyn, she has this wonderful podcast that she's doing. I want y'all to go check it out. She's talking about life in church from the perspective of a PK and what that's like. And she gets to see it and view it from her way. And she was talking about how we made her come to church and we didn't have kids all the time. But my parents had me at church. I didn't care whether she was going to drag me after that or not. It doesn't matter. My job was to do what? Get her butt to church. That's it. That is it. She got, and again, even as a PK, it's hard as an 18, 19, 21, 22, 23 to just try to come to church and just worship and just do your own thing, right? It just is. It's a challenge. And so for a time, Jocelyn would come home and she was like, Dad, I really need you to understand and embrace and support the fact that I want to go worship at another church just so I can do what other people do, just come in and worship. I'm like, all right, cool. As long as you're in someone's church getting the word, cool. Now, here's the thing. Every now and again, you need to show your behind up at your daddy's church. Let's just don't get that twisted. But I support it. Do I want my daughter here at the village every Sunday? Yeah, I would love to. But what do I want her to do? I want her to grow her relationship with God. And so as she goes on that journey, man, wherever it takes her, I'm trusting God. Man, if I told y'all some of the things in my journey when I was 24, 25, studied Jehovah's Witnesses, looked at a whole bunch of different things. Man, no, this thing ain't real. Yeah. I remember I was studying, Jehovah's Witness, and I told my mother I wasn't going to celebrate Christmas with my niece and nephew. She was like, look, you can be who you want. You can worship who you want. But you better have them kids a gift on the 25th. And she wasn't trying to hear it. She was like, you can do whoever you want. You can go witness, do whatever you want to witness, but all I know is this. On Christmas morning, them kids better have a gift. Yes, ma'am. So I embrace the journey. But my job as a parent was to do what? Present my child to the Lord. Present my child to the Lord. Parents, stop giving your children, stop giving your children, how do I want to say this? They don't get a say when they're under 18 in your house. They don't. Sunday morning, you get up and go to church. I tried that. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't a PK. I tried that one time with my mama. I don't feel like going to church today, Mom. Okay. You too sick? You too sick to go to church? Bet. There is no outside today. Outside is off limits. Yeah, there was, and again, in San Diego, yeah, it doesn't rain in Southern California. And it was man, I promise to God, it was always sunny. And so invariably, and we had thin walls and windows, so you could hear the kids outside. She's like, no, you couldn't go to church today. So you better march right on back upstairs, put your pajamas right back on, and get back in bed. No TV. My mother was gangster about it. If you that sick, you need time to recover. I ain't missed too many Sundays after that. I didn't. I'm like, man, it don't pay to miss church in my house. And I'm serious. And so it's like, man, okay, an hour service versus 8 hours of seclusion and sequestering. Nah, I think I'm going to go to church today. I'm not playing hooky. Parents, stop giving your children. Stop. Do you want to go? No, there is no do you want to go. You're going. And when you come, when you bring your children to church, there is no do you want to go to Kidville. If they are between grade ages, K through 5, there is no do you want to go. We're signing you into Village Kids today. That's where you're going. They ain't going to beat you up in there. You're going to go on in there and get a lesson at your, because I go and look at some of the things that Pal and them do. I'm like, oh, man, dang, that's kind of cool. Right? They give some crafts that go along with it. I'm like, I should have the parents doing some of that stuff in the sanctuary. So they bring their kids, look at this, look at what I did. Look what, and something blows up. I'm like, oh, man, that is so cool. Stop giving your children. You don't ask your children, I don't know, maybe y'all do. I don't know. I can't say about dinner because some of y'all do give your children what they want to eat. Lamont, you know the only time I could put a request in for what I want and expect to get it? My birthday. There was no, Michael, what do you want to eat tonight? You know what, I think I'll have chicken. Man, no. Invariably, we were having Kraft mac and cheese, green peas, chicken quarters, the leg and the thigh, because that was typically all that was on sale at the commissary. And my mother would buy like 8 to 10 packs of them and freeze them. And so we having them fried one day, barbecued the next, right? Then I grew up hating baked chicken. We'd have it fried, barbecued, and baked. Jeez, and again, I ain't know a chicken had a breast. I didn't know it had the breast. I swore that joker, there was like a demented, disfigured, 8-legged chicken out there because we wasn't having chicken. Oh, let me have the breast. Man, you had a leg and a thigh. That was it. That was it. Daddy might get a breast, but again, all we had was them. It was some long packs of chicken leg quarters, and I promise to God, I don't buy leg quarters to this day, Gail. I promise to God. I'm not even going to raise my right hand, but still, I don't buy leg quarters today. June brought home some chicken the other day. Yeah, I'm going to have the wing in that breast right there. And she even knew it. She was like, baby, I'm like, because there's only one breast. She's like, baby, you can have it. I'm like, no, I'll just have, I was just going to eat the corned beef hash and some green beans. That's it. My meat and protein was in the corned beef hash, and I was going to eat a big old plate of really put it in a bowl of green beans. Why? Man, because I didn't want leg quarters. I grew up. Stop asking your kids what they want. I think that's really the problem with this generation. We're asking them what they want. No, they need to learn to eat what's put on that table. And that was something I had to learn that, every generation goes through it. But I had to learn that I ate whatever my mama put on that table. That was ingrained in me at a young age. Kids get what they want now. And again, so do mine. Mine got that growing up, but, even, and this is even before I started, before we founded the Village of Faith. Lamar, you remember I went to Monrovia, Liberia. I was at Fourth Baptist. That was like 04, 05. And I saw these kids in Liberia eating this thing called bushwheat, which is really like pig feed. They had just come out of their 10-year civil war, and it was tragic. And I watched these kids eat stuff that pigs are supposed to eat. And so I came back home and told my kids, y'all will never tell me again what you will and won't eat. Y'all not picking stuff off of food and things of that nature. That ain't happening. They presented Jesus at the temple, as was the tradition. If the tradition is in your household is to go to church on Sunday, come hell or high water, sickness or disease, your kids should be in that car. I remember my nephew, he was playing around, it was late. We left him at home. He got left at home. And we had to drive up, because this is when I was pastoring Manga Hick. He had to stay in that house all by himself till we got back because he thought we was playing. He came outside, our car was gone. He had to go back, and then when we came back in, he was grounded for the rest of the day. You ain't go to church. Well, y'all didn't wait on me. Bruh, you a kid. Why am I waiting on you? So now go on up to your room. We'll see you Monday. We'll call you when it's dinner time. It was the custom. It was the Jewish custom to present that child before the Lord. And Mary and Joseph presented Jesus at the temple in Jerusalem when he was 40 days old. During this visit, they encountered Simeon and Anna, who recognized Jesus as the Messiah and prophesied about his future. I'm telling y'all this right now. The reason why you should have your kids in church and around other Christian adults and things of that nature, around ministers and things of that nature, people who've been walking with the Lord, they need people prophesying into them. They need children, they need adults inspiring them. Don't just bring your kids in and then just rush them out at the end of service. As parents, as you meet people in church, because you should be, as you talk to other people in church, those are some of the people that your children need to meet, that your children need to know. Because you never know who's going to speak into the life of your children. And so Mary and Joseph weren't expecting that, but Simeon was told that he would not die before he saw the Lord's salvation. And that's beginning over in verse 25. Then as they went, they saw Anna prophesy about what was to happen in his life. And again, we don't get this. We don't get this part. We don't get this teaching as it relates to Jesus because we talk about him being in a manger, then we already got him at the wedding of Cana. Got him at the wedding of Cana. And he's doing his first miracle, right? And we didn't deal with this formation. Every last one of us needs to focus on the foundation and formation of Christ, of Jesus, and his relationship and walk with God. Because every one of us should be in the process of working on our foundational relationship with the Lord. Every single year, this is an opportunity to do that, to strengthen our relationship with God, to renew that covenant with God, and to strengthen our walk with the Master. 24 days of fasting is just 24 days of fasting. if you ain't serious about trying to get your relationship with God. Why go on a fast and you really not going to try and follow God any stronger, any deeper, with no more commitment? Because that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a mother and a father committed to raising a child. And moms and dads, y'all have got to get committed to raising your children. The Bible says, in the fear and admonition of the Lord. We want to stop all this nonsense that's going on in these streets. Take these little jokers to church. Man, I'm sorry. And I'll say this. In the 70s, black community didn't have all this nonsense. We weren't shooting up each other like this in the 70s. Oh yeah, an occasional thing. Maybe someone, stole some money from somebody, or they owe somebody some money or something like this. But folk they weren't going up shooting up schools in the 70s. And I'm talking about the black community. We weren't hearing about this nonsense. Kids getting shot up. Schools getting shot up. So what's changed? The reality is this, man, dude, kids in school meant something. Even parents that didn't always go to church always made sure their kids went to church. Because their kids would get something to eat. They'd have something constructive to do. And don't y'all know that's where Sunday school came from? Literally, Sunday school was built on the fact that these kids in London were running around, getting into trouble, so they said, you know what? Let's do something on Sunday for these kids. And they came up with Sunday school. Kids need spiritual formation. My daughter can rebel, and I'm not saying my daughter's rebelling, don't take that the wrong way. My daughter gets to go on this journey, but the one thing we can say, she knows about the Lord. She knows about the Lord. Jalen, he knows about the Lord. And I'm not a perfect dad. Trust me. Listen to her podcast, he'll remind you. I'm not a perfect dad, I'm not. The one thing I wanted to do was to ensure that my children had a relationship with God. To the point where they get to the age that they're in, and now they got to start figuring out what this relationship means to them. And that's what Joseph and Mary did. We don't see Joseph a lot in the life of Jesus post wedding of Cana. We don't know what happened to Joseph. We don't. But I do know this. He had his behind at the temple. We know that. Here's something else that happened, right? Went over two things, right? Circumcision, covenant, presentation at the temple. Because even when you get over to where Jesus gets the scroll, opens it up to Isaiah, the text says in the Gospel of Luke that Jesus went to the temple on the Sabbath, as was his custom. It was his custom because his parents started the custom. And he just continued it. Parents, I want to challenge you, start that custom with your children today, this year, and then take it into next year. Start this Saturday. Start this Sunday. Bring them to church. Let them know on Saturday night, we're going to church on tomorrow. Y'all get your stuff together. Next thing we see happening is the escape to Egypt. Once the Magi came, and this was about 8 years. This is about 8 years. This is 8 years. Because Herod wanted the young boy killed. Herod wanted the boy killed. And so what we see happening to Jesus and Mary, they escaped, because again, the Magi came and they said, look, hey, Herod wants to kill you. We're supposed to tell him where you are. Text says that the Magi reported what they saw, then they went home a different way. Herod came to him and said, look, tell us what you see when you go down to Bethlehem, when you go down to where the boy is. Let us know what you see. Let me know so we can come. Herod said, so I can come worship you as well. And they was like, yeah, okay. You're not catching us. You're not putting us in that trick bag. And so what they did, they went down, told Mary and Joseph, and they escaped and went to Egypt. That's what happens. And that's over in the Gospel of Matthew, if you're looking. Matthew, the 2nd chapter. The Magi come to visit. And again, the reason why that's important, you have chapter 1 of Matthew, and then it just jumps right into, Jesus, Joseph accepts Jesus as his son over in Matthew 1 and 18. Then over in chapter 2, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem. It seems as if that happened while Jesus was still in the manger. And it didn't. It happened some 7 to 8 years after Jesus was born. Jesus was still a small child. Verse 3, when King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. It wasn't all Jerusalem. It was just people in power. When he called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. They said, in Bethlehem in Judea. They replied, for it is what the prophet has written. Verse 7, Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find, not the baby, search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him. Can I explain that? I'm going to get to that. Watch this. And it's kind of gruesome how you figure that out. Well, actually 2. It's 2 years, not 8, 2. Here it is. I'm going to get to you. It's over in verse 16 through 17. But before we get there, when they saw the star, because it had stopped, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary. And they bowed down and worshiped him. Okay? Coming to the what? Verse 10 says they came to the what? Not the manger, but to the house. He was born in a manger, but he's living in a house. So the Magi never visited Jesus in the manger. Let's keep going. They opened up their treasures. We know that they gave him gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Verse 12, and having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. Herod wanted to find out. Herod and all the establishment, all the power, all the people who were in positions of power, they knew that the coming king would potentially replace them. So Herod didn't want that to happen. He was troubled. He was disturbed. They weren't overjoyed. Text says they were upset. They were perplexed. They were concerned. Right? Because that was back in verse 3. When King Herod heard about this, he was disturbed. He wasn't overjoyed. He was disturbed. The wise men, they were happy. King Herod, position of power? Yeah, no. So after that meeting of King Herod and the wise men, an angel came to him and said, hey, look, you are not to go back and tell him. When they had gone, verse 13, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, get up and take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. Verse 16, so he took up the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt, where he stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. Can I just stop here parenthetically? How can a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white kid blend in Egypt? Can't. So obviously Jesus looked like the Egyptians, or he could kind of blend in Egypt. It wasn't Tarzan out there white skin out there with all these brown. Ain't how it happened, right? Here's why this is important. Verse 16. When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, because the text says that they went home by another route. The text says he was furious and gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem in the vicinity who were 2 years old and under. I was wrong at 8, it's 2. 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. So basically, he just did some basic math. All right, if he was born here, and this, that came here, anyone 2 and under. And so they executed and went in and killed babies, or children rather, 2 and under. Jesus was a basic 2-year-old toddler. That's how Jesus was born. Jesus escaped to Egypt, and there was a slaughter left behind. Herod came in and killed him. It's interesting. They were that upset about Jesus being born, about the Messiah. Dude, again, Herod and all the leaders, they were upset. Can I help y'all? If you're upset as a leader that someone else is coming to do work, to help out, even to replace you at one point in time, why get upset? Everyone's time is going to come. All things come to an end. And it's okay. Especially if it's God. Now, if it's someone trying to play tricks and games and all that, no, that's not cool. But if it's God's time for you to sit down, especially in the church, right? That was one thing, boy, deacons, a guy he wanted to be head of the deacon board till he died. And then, because I remember we talked about term limits. You can't put term limits. Why not? The Bible don't say nothing about term limits on a deacon. Well, the Bible don't say nothing about there being a head deacon. Chair of the deacon board, one of the most powerful positions in the black church. And it's perpetuity until they die. Until they die. A lot of churches are like that. Because they don't want to see anyone else come in and give voice. Herod did not want God's move to happen. He didn't want prophecy fulfilled. And so they slaughtered a bunch of children in the wake of that. That's Christmas. That's Christmas time. That's what happened from the day Jesus was birthed until he jumped back on the scene, until he returned from Egypt. Verse 19 tells us, after Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead. So he got up and took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. Verse 22 of the 2nd chapter of Matthew. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, having been warned in the dream. He withdrew to the district of Galilee and went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets, that he would be called a Nazarene. That's Matthew 2. That's Matthew 2. What's that? Do we know the age? No, we don't have the age of Jesus here. Right? Someone asked, do we know how old Jesus is at this point? In this part of the text, we don't know, right? Because the Bible isn't a true historical record, right? But the thing that you're able to do is based on dates and occurrences, rather. You can see what happened. So we know that someone is presented in Jewish time back then 40 days. So that baby had been born 40 days. We know that the child, when was circumcised, all right, the child was 8 years old, or eight days old, right? We know that based upon Herod trying to kill children, again, we can tell that between, roughly 2 years old and under, that Jesus was in that age range. And so that's how we kind of delineate what's going on in the text by what's going on around the text. Well, and again, we'd have to go and find somewhere else and do some other study to find out when Herod died. And so by doing that, you can kind of factor in, if you kind of knew that Jesus had to be around that 2 years, he had to be 1 to 2, right? And then you can just do the math, because you would still need to see how old Herod was at this point. But then you would get in the ballpark of where he was. So it's almost like this. You know that by looking at certain movies, what time of year it is, right? The first Color Purple was made when? Whenever you see the Color Purple, you can always say that was roughly somewhere between 1985 and 1989. It was in that range, right? And so you can kind of get close. You can do this. If you ever see a movie that's set in New York that has the Twin Towers, right, the legit Twin Towers, you know that it was pre-9/11, that this movie was made pre-9/11. And so you do some of that in biblical studies as well, that you can look to see that this event happened, so it kind of happened around in this time frame. Will you get the exact time, the exact date? No, because again, this isn't trying to give you historical facts. What they're trying to do is grow your faith, because that's what the Bible is for. It just is, right? And so you're able to pull from some other sources and kind of pinpoint some things down. Like, did Jesus exist? Well, the Quran has Jesus existing. Antiquities of Josephus has this person, Jesus from Nazareth, existing. And the Bible has Jesus existing. And so basically what we talk about, if you could have 2 to 3 sources that say the same thing and give evidence of the same thing, we can probably and most possibly say that this thing occurred, right? And so you would just need other witnesses. And that, now you're taking me back to biblical, to my first intro to biblical studies in seminary. We had to go through all these things, find stuff in the Old Testament, find stuff in extra biblical writings to support what it was we were saying here. And so that's kind of how we get around to some of those things. What does that have to do with Christmas time? It has a lot to do with it. Again, we should look to be in covenant with God, because Christmas doesn't put you in covenant. It just doesn't. Christmas puts us in debt. Christmas puts us in this state of law. Holidays sometimes are bad for us because they're dictating what we spend, how we spend, and how we act between now and the beginning of the year. Who says we should be off right now? We're off because other people are off. And I'm going to take, who says that, right? Who dictates that? And so, there are kids that are out of school. Some of these kids need to be back in school right now. And they're not, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. They're not going back to like the 5th or the 6th of January. Now, some of these kids, they need as much instruction as they can get right now. But y'all, focus on our covenant with God. Understand that we need to raise up our children. You parents, y'all, because again, we're training them up in something. And many of these kids ain't gonna have nothing to fall back on once they go to college. Once some hard times really hit them in life, they're not gonna have nothing to fall back on. Not gonna have anything. Then don't discount that some of y'all got through the tragedies and some of the rough experiences that you've had in life because of your faith. Because, and again, it always troubled me when parents come up and say, well, I'm not going to make my kids do it because my parents made me do that and I don't want to be. Oh, maybe you were successful because your parents made you go to church. It gave you this foundation with God. And getting that foundation with God gives you so many different things that you don't even understand that you get. You get to interact with adults. You get to interact with adults from different backgrounds. You get to interact with kids from different backgrounds. And that's important. That's important. Look, that's all the time that I have. We're at time. We're at 7 o'clock. Those of you who want to give, we want y'all to give. Look. I need y'all to prepare to give a gift on the last day of this year. I need some of y'all to prepare. Even prepare and start doing that right now. I need at least 5 of you that are willing to give the new year number in a financial gift. $2,024. I need at least 5. Why? I want to get off to a fast start financially in 2024. And the only way we're going to do that is if we give to that. Now, and it's interesting, I haven't always been, to ask for people to give, man, it's always been kind of tough. Even when I sat down with people that focus on giving, they're like, Mike, you got to be willing to ask, yada, yada. And I always had an issue and a concern of being that preacher or that church where all they want is money. And that's not who we are, because I purposed us to not be that way. But I know this, that you have not because you ask not. And so if I never make the ask of you, you'll never give it. Not because you don't have it, not because you don't want to give it, because you never knew that it was a need. It's interesting, Addie. I have a lobbyist fundraiser coming up January the 3rd before we go into session. Once we go into session, January 10, we can't fundraise while we're in session. And so the lobbyists, they know that we have to raise money, but guess what they're waiting for? For you to ask. There are delegates that never ask lobbyists to give. And they have budget to give. They have budget to give to so many House of Delegate members because they know that they want to have relationships, they want to write. But because they never ask. So one, I'm sending emails left and right. I call them, hey, I got this is coming up, I'm running. But here's the thing, if I'm able to do that for my campaign, I need to be able to do that for my church. I want us to get off to a fast start financially in 2024. So I know if 5 of you give $2,024, that's going to be over $10,000 that we have day one. 10,000 day one. I need another 25 of you that are willing to give $224. Take the 0 out, give 224. 25 of them. And again, don't just fall into a smaller category because it's easy for you. If you can do the 2024 between now and midnight Sunday, purpose in your heart to give it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go find it too. 224. Let that be your exiting gift. For some of you that are struggling right now and that, man, hey, giving anything is difficult, make yours $24. Make yours 24. Above your tithes and your offering, make it 24. Above your tithes and offering, make it 2,024. Above your tithes and offerings, make it 224. Why? I want to get off to a fast start financially in 2024. And we need your help to do that. We need your assistance to do that. All right? So there are 4 ways to give: PushPay, PayPal, Cash App, Givelify. Maybe you need to maybe you can do 2024 in two installments. One tonight and then one Sunday. Maybe a third of it tonight, a third of it Sunday morning, and a third of it Sunday night at our 10 o'clock service. But I'm believing God for that. I'm believing God for that. and at least 5 of you. And I know I got at least 5 of y'all I can get at easily without thinking. I know, man, there's a goo gobs of y'all that can do 224 without thinking. And everyone should at least give 24 above their tithes and offerings. We can do that. Let's get off to a fast start. Let's make some things happen. We're going to have fun on New Year's Eve preaching wise. I'm trying not to preach that thing Sunday morning and save it for Sunday night. I can't wait. I can't wait because we're going to tighten this circle up in 24. We're going to tighten this. It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be fun. There's going to be some basic things I'm going to look for in what the Bible has to say about how we ought to live this new year in this new season. Here's just one basic thing. People that ain't calling you on a regular basis, why? Think about it. We waste time talking to people that really don't want to talk to us. Maybe not you. But if you're the one that's always, think about the people that you talk to. If you're always the one initiating the contact, is that really a friend? Or is that the type of friend that you really need in this season? 24, hey, y'all, we're tightening this thing up. We're going to tighten up our belts, right? We're going to tighten up our belts to really focus in and hone in on the things that we need in 24. Because there are some goals that we wrote down in 23 that we started working towards, but things got kind of, not because we didn't want them to happen, but we had some distractions. And so we're going to have to tighten some stuff up. We're going to have to read a little bit more. Talked about the fact that most African Americans never read a book after high school. And that's scary. That is scary. And we'll talk about the fact that we don't have what? We don't have time. We're going to tighten that belt up this year. Y'all, we're going to get to saving and sowing this year. We're going to tighten up this belt this year. When we get, and I'm going to prep y'all for this all year. We're going to do this again. The Lord put this on my heart the other day. We're going to do the No New School, the No New Clothes Challenge again, coming into September and August as kids go back to school. Because we're wasting so much money to impress people that you ain't going to see again. And so we're going to have some fun. We're going to have some fun on New Year's. We're going to confirm some things. Some of y'all going to be like, you know what? What kind of friend is this person being? Who is speaking into your life? Who in your circle is pushing you? Who in your circle is pushing you to stretch the limits of this circle? To stretch the limits. Y'all know how, Addie, you know how cells grow. That they'll, now you got 2 new cells. Some of y'all are still staying in the same cell, and you're not growing. Ain't no growth. Seriously now, if you and your friend are still in the same place now as y'all were 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, something's wrong with that. If y'all are in the same exact place that y'all were 5 years ago, and we haven't seen this, and not separation to that, that we don't never talk. No. But you don't try to duplicate, try to grow. Something's wrong with that, y'all. That's living things grow. Whether it's a marriage, whether it's a relationship, but we're not experiencing any growth. And so, man, I'm in this season. I told James Johnson, I love y'all. And I've done my job as a dad. Y'all go get it because I'm about to go get it. God bless y'all. I ain't got no games to go to left and right now. I ain't got no training session, all that stuff. Man, dude. So I'm going to get Layla going. Let's go, Layla. Let's get it, girl. But hey, we tightening this belt up. And not tightening up to just, no, we tighten this belt up, and we're really going to assess. You really need to assess some of the people you got in your life. Because if all y'all still broke, what's up? If you and your friends are still broke, y'all really need to break up. I told you, I can't wait. I can't wait to see y'all Sunday night, because we're going to take some time and talk about this. And y'all going to take, especially those of you with iPhones, you got that favorites list, that you got, because you got an iPhone, you have a favorites, you have a favorite scene, all the ones that you frequently call, yada, yada, yada. Some of y'all going to change your frequent list. Some of y'all going to be forced to change it. Dude, if you ain't going after something, what you really doing? What are you really doing? Right? So, hey, don't hate on me, because I'm trying to. And then after that happens, man, I'm going to try and have those two split. Boom, boom, boom. Dude, I'm finna work it this year. I just am. All right, look, we got to go. Look, I love y'all. Sunday, put that up, Adrian. Put Sundays up. Here's our schedule for Sunday. Are they seeing it at home? Look, I want to see y'all in church on Sunday. Sunday morning and Sunday night. 9 a.m. here at the East Campus, 11 a.m. at the South Campus, and then 10 p.m. at the South Campus, all right? And we're gonna pray in the new year, and we're going to have that. So drink you a couple Red Bulls, do whatever you got to do, get you some caffeine, we'll have some coffee out or something, but we're going to make this happen, all right? Look, I love y'all. Now and him was able to keep you from falling, to present you before his presence with exceedingly great joy. To the only wise God, our Savior, be glory and majesty, dominion and power henceforth, now and forever. In Jesus Christ's name, all of God's children said amen and amen. Look, I love y'all. Go in peace and serve the Lord. See y'all this Sunday. God bless you.